be smart about living to be 100. And that is a great topic for us all to be thinking about after the year that we've just recently come through. I'm Ingrid Sullivan, as most of you know, and I wanted to introduce my team today. I'm Ingrid Sullivan with the Sullivan & Sullivan Real Estate Team. My partner in business, as well as my partner in life, is John Sullivan. He and I both are the real estate agents on our team. And then Debbie Ford is our operations manager. And many of you have had an opportunity to interact with Debbie because maybe you didn't get the link or you wanted to make sure you were registered for our seminars, but she's the person that works hard to put together the slide presentations for us for our different topics. And she's also the person that makes sure that you get the invitation to the event right. I like to say she's my right arm. I couldn't do it without her. She's just really a really great team member. Sullivan & Sullivan Real Estate also is the owner of a company that's called Senior Downsizing Experts. And you may have learned about us through that company. At that company, we help our clients when they're looking to make a right sizing move, whether it be to an apartment or to another home somewhere or across country. We have a team of professionals that work with us there. So we're Sullivan & Sullivan, owning Senior Downsizing Experts. One thing that's really important to us is that we share our mission statement with you because we want you to know how passionate we are about our business and the people that we work with. And as you can see here, our mission is to empower our clients and their families to make informed choices, which allow them to have peace of mind, confidence, security, and most of all, an uplifting experience, especially if you're involved in our smart right sizing services, which, like I mentioned before, is a combination of our real estate transactions, move management services, and education, which is what we're doing today. Smart Senior Services, our Smart Senior Series, is something that we put together that's educational. We want you to feel like you can come and learn about different topics, enjoy the guest speakers that we bring to you. We feel that we want it to be empowering and educational for you. So right now, what we have here in front of us is we have a list of all the different sponsors that are with us this year, and we have quite a few. We have Dignity, Life Well Celebrated. We've got Civitas Senior Living. We have Haber Wealth Management. We've got Count It All Joy Estate Sales, Old Republic Title, the Viridian Elements, Celebration Magazine. If you haven't signed up for that, you really should. Cherry Creek Mortgage, and Album Keller Ranch. And we've decided, because we have so many sponsors, that we want to be able to showcase a sponsor or two each month. And this month's sponsor is the Watermark at Broadway City View. And Debbie Collins is the sales director there. And Debbie, if you're with us, I'd like for you to take a couple of minutes and share with our audience about your great community.
Absolutely. Can you all hear me? I'm not sure.
Yes, we can.
Okay. So Ingrid, thank you so much for the invite, and I'm glad to be part of this group again this year. Watermark at City View is located about 15 minutes southwest of downtown Fort Worth, and we offer independent living, villa living, assisted living, rehab, skilled nursing. All of this is on a 26-acre guarded gate community that does give you more of a resort type feel, perhaps. We offer chef-prepared cuisines, interesting classes, and our residents enjoy a number of special services and amenities, all to promote longevity and carefree living styles. I think we have lovely concierge services, salons, barbershops, fitness centers, indoor pools, and so just a variety of activities to keep people active and enjoying senior living. So certainly appreciate the opportunity to tell you just a little bit about Watermark at Broadway City View.
Well, thank you so much. One of the things, Debbie has been a sponsor with us now for a couple of years, and they do have a very beautiful community. John and I actually have several clients that are living there, and they really have enjoyed all the amenities that are out there. So thank you, Debbie. She'll be joining us again in a couple of months when we talk about senior living options, and we'll expand on what Watermark has to offer them.
You know, Ingrid, can I just say one more thing? I think one of the reasons I decided to get involved with Ingrid in her group is I learned very quickly that I had a number of clients coming through the door. And while Ingrid didn't specifically say, go see Debbie at City View, what I learned is they had attended her seminars and learned so much that they came well armed with all these great questions. And I was just so impressed with the information that came from these seminars. And I just decided I had to get involved with it. And so I think you do a great job, and thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you very much. We appreciate that. So let's go ahead and get started with our program. Today we have two experts. We were very excited about this topic. Today we'll be hearing from Daniel Pitts Winegarden, and we're also going to be hearing from Dr. Shaneka Baylor. In our program. Each one will have an opportunity to answer some questions and talk with us a little bit about what their expertise is. So let's talk a little bit about 100 years. Oh my goodness, it used to be that it was something that sounded so far away, but what's happening now for a lot of us is it's really not the case at all. 100 years, centenarian is a person living to be at least 100 years old. Or there again, we hear, and we've heard about this on the news here not that long ago, we have super centenarians. And those are people that are living to be 115 years or older. So as I mentioned that to you, I want you to think about that. Those of you that are 60, 70, 80, and you're really doing pretty well, it doesn't seem that far away, does it? Centenarians are becoming more common. So we did a little bit of statistical work for you because we know that you're all interested in that. And you know, the number of people worldwide who are 100 years or older, if you look at this graphic that we have, looking in 1950, there were about 34,000 individuals that were 100 years or older. But then as you shoot over to the right and up to the top, you can see we're almost at 600,000 right now. In 2020, we had 423,000 centenarians. That's really something to think about. Just a little breakdown for you right here. Most centenarians in the United States, we have about 93,000 here. The highest percent of population is in Japan, about 79,000, and 6% of their population are centenarians. 85% of the people there are over 100, and they're women. The world's oldest man, Saturnino de la Fuente of Spain, is 112 years old. I don't know if that's the gentleman that I saw on the news a couple of weeks ago, but I did see a gentleman that was over 100, and he crochets all day long. He's really good at it, very nimble finger-wise. World's oldest woman. Okay, I think we all know this. Us women live a lot longer than the men. Kane Tanaka of Japan, she's 117 years old. My, that's something. And if you think further, as we age and time goes on, by the time 2050 comes along, there are going to be 3.7 million people in the world that are 100 years or older. That's a lot, isn't there? Isn't it? What I wanted to share with you about that's really interesting for John and I, is that currently we have 3 real estate clients that we're working with. One is 91. We have another one that's 92 and one that's 94. And I promise you this, if you were sitting down with them, having a conversation like we're having here together today, you would never know that they were in their 90s. They're very energetic, very witty and sharp. It's just really a joy to be able to work with them. So what we're going to do next is we have a couple of interviews that we've done in preparation for our event today. We've spoken to two people that are in their 90s. We had, of course, a list of questions for them. And we're going to take a couple of minutes and listen to Mr. Bill Sean and also Miss Betty Brigier.
Well,
Debbie, go ahead and get us going.
And we are here today interviewing one of our favorite past clients, Mr. Bill Sean, and thank you for helping with this.
I'm glad to be here, and thank you for having me. When you called and asked about this, I readily agreed because I like to share with what life is giving me right now at my advanced age.
Advanced age. So tell us a little bit about you. Let's start out first, since this is titled Living to be 100. Would you mind if I ask you how old you were?
I am 91, August 2nd, 1929. I caused the big crash. I was born in August, and the crash happened in October, I think.
Oh my goodness.
I think I remember that. So I lived through the Depression. I was what they call a depression baby, and it affects your whole life.
Oh, yeah.
You always have that with you when you grow up, saving every little tin can and everything. You become a kind of a hoarder, I think. And so I've sort of been that way, even though I want to give my talent and everything to God and to serve human beings. I still have that with me. I grew up in the country on a farm, but I found music and it just threw me out of the canyon into the world.
That's great. So when you were younger, did you think that that you had the potential to live to be 100?
I had no concept of living older because people then were dying earlier.
Yes.
And people who were 70 were very old,
That's right. Yeah.
The concept of age was different then. So I didn't really, I had no idea. I had a couple of distant relatives who lived to be 190 and that.
190 or 90 and 100?
90
Wow.
and but I knew age just from a few people that I knew, and they were very unusual people. People looked up to them as very unusual types of people to live that long. And
well,
so
the people that get older, like yourself, my experience has been in the past, don't usually have the kind of interests that you do. Yes, they've had them, but the ability to be engaged in those and the energy that you have at your age, which is very impressive. Is there anything that you could share with me that would attribute to the fact that you've lived such a long life, health-wise, etc.?
I think that exchange with people, keeping interest in others and having that interaction with other people and always giving and taking and giving and the idea that I felt useful, something to put my feet down on the floor in the morning, a reason to live, and my Christian service and also working and helping people. I always wanted to help young people sing better than I could sing, and so that was my interest, is to find talent and develop that talent. So that's
great. So what are some of the biggest challenges that you've had to overcome as you've aged?
Other people's attitude. They start treating you old. I've never been treated old, and all of a sudden I was realizing that I was in other people's eyes getting old because I would be singing in a choir. I sing in a choir of it used to have 176 voices, and we traveled and everything, and people started, when I'd come out to sing my solos in the choir, they would say, let's help you. And that idea, I must seem old to them because they want to help me. And it had to come through the back door that I was getting old because I didn't feel old in my mind.
Well, and
I just appeared old to other people. That was the idea. And of course, neuropathy in the feet. When your feet go, forget that the energy to get around and to. So I have to lean on people and things and to walk and go and do things, to get to the piano, in fact, or to stand at a microphone and sing.
Oh yeah.
It's always a challenge to do that. So that's the main challenge I have is to stay. I want to do what my mind says, but my body doesn't quite keep up with my mind.
Yes. Yeah.
I think that's the way I see it.
Bill, if you had to give anyone any advice, words of wisdom, what would that be for you at this stage in your life for living a good long life?
I think staying spiritually in touch with God, having that anchor of knowing that you have a purpose in life, and you can't forget that. If you forget that, that's your rudder, and so you always have to have that one thing. Like it's like a sailboat; you have to know where you're going,
Right.
and then to keep that straight. And I think that's the main thing: staying centered in your spiritual life, and that's very important to me. So.
Any final words of wisdom for our audience today?
Keep the connection going. That is the worst thing, is to cut yourself off from other people as you sit in your chair. You've got to keep going. Even when we get our mask off and you can give a smile in the hall, you are being worth something to the world. If you could just keep your connection to people and to God, let Him be seen through your life. And I think that's the main thing, is that every time they look at you, they don't see a negative, they see a positive.
Yeah. Well, I thank you so much.
It's been wonderful just being with you. These questions are so, they are very, very good questions.
So we'll go now to
I'm here
Miss
to-
Betty. She lives at the Watermark.
She is living here at the Watermark in Fort Worth. It's independent living, and we're so happy to have you here today to share your story with us.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So one of my questions for you is that when you were younger, did you think that you had the potential to live to be 100 years old?
Never entered my mind.
How old were your parents when they passed?
Well, my father died when I was 4 of pneumonia. You know, they didn't have penicillin
Oh, yeah.
at that time. And so he had pneumonia and died. And my mother never remarried. And she lived to be 91.
Oh, okay.
So, but, you know, that never entered my mind. I just went on with my life.
Right. Do you mind if I ask you how old you are?
I'm 94.
94. Okay. What stands out to you that would attribute to you having such a long life?
I started walking every day when I was pregnant with my 3rd son, and I've been walking ever since. And when I moved to Georgetown, I was walking 3 miles a day. But, you know, as time went on, I walked a little less, you know, about 2 miles. But I enjoy the pool here, and I did participate in the water aerobics and so forth in Georgetown. And then I was so glad. That was one reason I moved to this place, was because of the beautiful pool we have indoors.
Yeah.
And so we have water aerobics 3 times a week. And I think exercise is very important, and kind of keeping your weight down.
Well, I agree with you. John and I take water aerobics 2 times a week. And I think it's good not only for your body, but it's good for your mind.
It is.
Another question for you. What are the biggest challenges that you've had to overcome as you've aged? You mentioned something about your heart.
Well, that was pretty scary, of course. My my doctor discovered that I had a blockage in the aorta. And so I had surgery. And he said, well, you know, you really need to have surgery and right away. And I said, well, what will happen if I don't have it? He said, well, you'll probably have a stroke.
Oh,
That was the magic
Yeah.
word. I said, let's go. You know?
yeah.
So, but that was very difficult, and you know, I made it through.
Yeah,
that.
you did. Is there anything else that comes up for you that you think was a challenge to overcome during this time?
Well, I don't know. You know, oh, I'm sorry. One of the challenges is losing people that you love, and I had my oldest granddaughter was killed in a car wreck, and 2 weeks later was when my husband was killed in a car wreck. And I'll tell you, that was pretty hard to overcome.
I can imagine.
But you know, nobody wants to be around people that are sad and droopy and moaning. And I thought, I'm not going to let myself do that. And I'm worse now that, you know, the older I get, I'm more sentimental, I guess.
What words of advice do you have for others that are living a long life?
Well, I don't know. Everybody just has to do their own thing, and whatever makes you happy. And being happy is not, my mother taught me this. Other people don't make you happy. You have to be happy within yourself in order to be happy. You can't depend on somebody to make you happy. It's got to be you.
That's very good, because a lot do. A lot of people do.
Yeah.
And so what do you do for yourself to continually remind yourself or stay happy inside?
Well, you know, stay busy. Like I do play bridge. And we couldn't play bridge for a little while. And finally, my foursome decided we were going to play bridge no matter what. And so we started playing in my apartment in kind of secret.
Okay. So in our ending of our interview today, are there any words of wisdom that you'd like for John and I to take away from our time today, or things that you might like to share with others?
I don't think I have any words of wisdom other than what I've told you. You know, be happy within yourself and be around people that are happy. Don't be around people that are, you know, pokey and sad and
Right.
You know, so
And it sounds like you also said too, though, to be engaged in things that are going on outside.
And I didn't mention either that I am interested and definitely interested in my church.
Yes.
I go to Arbor Lawn Methodist Church.
Well, it's a beautiful church. Well, I want to thank you for taking the time with us today. It really meant a lot to us to share this with you.
I hope that what I said helps someone.
Well, and I know it will, because everybody's interested in what's going on now. And especially someone like yourself that's so energetic, doing all you do. I mean, it's proof right there that 94 years old is just a number.
So that was really great. Those were really great interviews. It's hard not to tear up through some of those things, but the things that we need to keep in mind that really stood out for me is to stay engaged, stay active, stay involved in your church. That was something that was important to both of those people. And you're only as old as you think up here, which I think was great. And Dan will actually elaborate on a lot more of that when we talk with him in a few moments. But just, you know, kind of looking at this graphic that we have here right now, keys to living longer. So physical activity, exercise is important. Betty walks. She swims during the week. She didn't mention how many times, but she swims. Eating right's going to be really important, and we'll be talking about that with Dr. Shaneka Baylor today. Social activity is everything. If your family lives close by, you want to take the time, and it's been hard this last year and a half to even do that. But we've got opportunities like we're doing today to keep involved with people. Be involved in your community if you can. It's going to make you feel useful, which is what we all want. And of course, the mental side of it is do what you love and love what you do. Find things that make you feel good, make you feel productive. And the last one, but not the least one, is attitude is everything. I would say this, my husband teases me a lot when I if I have a bad attitude about something, he'll say, don't be a Debbie Downer, which really irritates me when he says that to me, but it's a reminder to me that, hey, there's a different way to look at that. And you're really doing a disservice to yourself. So let's move forward and see what else we have to offer today. This is a great graphic that we have here. This is a Japanese saying here, and it really talks about what is my purpose. It's called Ikigai. And if you were to look at the 4 inner circles, the 4 intersecting circles, they are your passion, your mission, your vocation, and your profession. And all of those things play into your purpose, what you love, what the world needs, what you can be paid for, and what you're really good at. And as it says on the bottom of our graphic here, for that translation, it says the happiness of always being busy. What is it that you do that makes you feel good? And we're going to talk more about that today as well. So at this point, we are going to move on to our first guest, Daniel Pitts Winegarden. And Daniel is here as a co-owner of a company called Aging with Freedom. And he's got a lot of great information for us today. I also have a list of questions for him as well. But before we do that, before we get started, we have just a little poll for you to answer that'll kind of help Daniel and I know what do we have here as far as our biggest fears from our audience. So take a minute and click on those. I think they're multiple choice, right, Deb? This is just a single choice, or it is multiple choice. So click on those things that are your biggest fears. All right, couple of seconds. Doon, 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 doon. All right, let's see. Let's see what the polling results are. So, this is really surprising to me because I would have thought that it was the second one, but it looks like for our audience, the biggest fear that people have right now are memory issues. Thanks, Debbie, for sharing that with us. Let's go ahead and move forward to our conversation with Dan. Hi, Dan.
Hey, Ingrid. Good to talk to you and to everybody here online.
Good to talk to you. Thank you so much for doing this. Now, for all of you that are attendees today, Dan is not physically here with us in the studio. Dr. Shaneka Baylor is here with me, but Dan is actually coming to us from Iowa, but I think he's going to tell us that he has a little taste of Texas, right?
We have previously
Dan,
lived.
Introduce yourself.
Yeah. Dan Winegarden. I write a blog called Aging with Freedom with my wife. My wife came out of a career of construction management and included experience building senior housing for Life Care Services, one of the major developers of senior living communities around the country. And I came out of financial regulation that included senior living in our state. But in the course of our career, we lived in Richardson, Texas, when Lori worked for Trammell Crow. And then later that was acquired by C.B. Richard Ellis And so we've been in several cities as necessary for her work. We moved back to Iowa to be closer to Lori's folks as they were aging. Similarly, really good genes. They lived into their 90s, but that issue with mental dementia or loss of memory, those are real concerns as you get older, and particularly with how common diabetes and some of the complicating issues are. So I'm really looking forward to Shaneka's presentation, because this is a really hot topic for us as well. We've dramatically changed our lifestyle and diet to try to protect our brain health long term.
Well, I have some questions for you. As we had mentioned before, we try to do that with all of our panelists, but I just wanted to kind of give you a little insight. We've just come off of our very first seminar, which was last month, and that seminar was called Be Smart About Planning for Your Future. And in that particular seminar, we talked about things like legal documents, being prepared, having all the right documents in place. We talked about money, investments, where is your wealth at this time? And then we also talked about end of life plans, because we felt it's really important as we're planning ahead that we have all of these pieces in place. So I wanted to let you know that, because a lot of this right now is actually top of mind for our attendees today. Several of them were there with us last month. As I go into the questions that we have for you, one of the questions I want to ask you is, you have something that's called a trifecta. Tell us about the trifecta and tell us how much wealth is enough.
So a lot of us start out thinking about retirement planning, thinking about the money. Do I have enough? How much is enough to retire? And one of the things that Lori and I did when we thought about, starting a business together was, what are the lessons that we've learned by looking at, kind of the best performers, the high performers when it comes to aging as individuals, when it comes to communities in terms of senior living. And one of the big lessons is the money alone is never enough. And that led to our trifecta slogan, which is high wealth, high health, and high purpose. High wealth, high health, and high purpose. None of those are absolute numbers. I mean, yeah, if you listen to financial planners, they say, oh, you need $1 million to even think about retiring. But the truth is, most of us retire very happy and very successfully with less than $1 million, in the bank. So it can't be true that you need $1 million to be successful or happy in retirement. And even if you have $1 million, money without the health isn't very rewarding. So you want to have enough health to be able to enjoy the money. But even at that, I'm sure people that are rich and perfectly unhappy. And so it turns out that this purpose, this ikigai, another kind of summary for ikigai from your little chart at the start, is what's your reason for getting up in the morning? And having some service beyond self is really important to long-term happiness. And that's actually one of the toughest challenges in retirement, is not so much the money running out, but do we continue to have purpose and a reason to get up in the morning? Some of our habits from work life, from career, we have to reshape when we go into retirement in order to be successful. And that's one of the things we focus on, is the money alone is never enough. We want enough money to be able to have freedom of choice about where and how to live. And we want to choose as much health as we can, because there's some random chance. It's not all up to us when it comes to health, but it's surprising how much is. And I think Shaneka will hit on that with diet and things and exercise that Bill mentioned and Betty mentioned. But ultimately, the happiness really comes down to our interactions and service to other people. Most of us have the experience of birthdays or Christmas or other holidays where there's more fun in giving than receiving. And it's true as we age as well.
Absolutely. I agree with that. So kind of a summation of that, how common is it for somebody to run out of money?
You know, surprisingly, it's not as common as you would think. It turns out we're surprisingly good about managing our resources. You know, I'm 62, early retirement. I'm at kind of that point of concern of I don't want to spend too much now because there's sequence of return risks. If a bad market were to happen today, it would affect all of my future returns, right? But you know, for the most part, what we find is that people are pretty conservative early in their retirement. That's hard to switch over from the accumulation phase to the spending phase. So, you know, we don't spend as much as maybe we could. And it also, we kind of guard against the worst case scenario of what might happen. And the worst case doesn't always happen. You know, if the financial planners talk about Monte Carlo, you know, looking at risk and if, you know, what would have happened if you retired in any of the last, you know, 100 years with your current assets and the market performed like it did going forward. And the worst case scenario is only a couple, 3 years, okay, out of all of that. So most of the time we do pretty well with our savings without even trying very hard. And then finally, a lot of the projections are based upon spending the exact same amount of money as we spend when we retire. So, you know, if I'm spending $60,000 today, you know, nice, comfortable lifestyle, no complaints, it's 60,000 plus inflation until the end. But the truth is, as we get older, we actually spend less because we travel less, our energy declines, you know, we have everything we need. Maybe we value our relationships more than our things, and we spend more on experience than things. It just turns out that it doesn't take as much as the financial planners always think that it needs. So most of us don't run out of money. Are there exceptions? Yes, but there's also the safety net of Medicaid and Social Security is, you know, something of a stopgap because it inflates with inflation, not as much as sometimes we'd like, but it's some protection at kind of the bottom end of the income scale. And Medicaid for healthcare definitely falls into that category as a safety net as well. So for the most of us, we do really well in retirement and maybe better than we expected.
Well, one of the other questions that I have that kind of follows along those same lines is, does increasing longevity change the rules of retirement as we're talking about living to be 100?
You know, it does. I mean, we do have to think about how long will our resources last. And, you know, one of the best predictors that, you know, the Bill and Betty both mentioned is kind of what about our, you know, our parents' longevity or our relatives' longevity is some predictor. And the longer that we live, the longer that we're likely to live. You know, the average lifespan at in the mid 80s includes everybody that has already passed away from all of the risks of being young. Well, it turns out if you live to 65 or if you live to 85, your chances of living are far better than that just the population average. So most of us that get to 80 are highly likely to get to 90 now. So it's a one that we do have to think about in terms of our resources and, you know, planning ahead. But it turns out that's not our weakness for the most part. We're good at that. We're good about being conservative. I do think it's important to manage. Yeah, it is important to have a budget and to manage your budget and to know your money. If you didn't learn that in your career, it's more important in retirement because we don't have the same potential to add income that we do when we're 40 or 50.
That's right. That's right. So moving on to another topic. So as you've done your research, what was one of the biggest discoveries that you made?
This is one where we started looking at the kind of the best examples of senior living. And what we found was that it wasn't the architecture that made the difference, you know, how pretty the building was, how great, and my wife came out of construction and design, so we really like good construction and good architecture. But what really mattered to the most successful communities out there in senior living and to individuals was a sense of community, because the problem is more isolation and loneliness. And, you know, Betty and Bill both touched on the risk of outliving your friends, outliving family. You know, there's some natural attrition. So getting good at making new friends and new connections is really important as we age. The public health background, it turns out that loneliness is as deadly as smoking 2 packs of cigarettes a day, according to the epidemiologists.
Wow.
Okay, so I mean, we can measure the threat of loneliness in terms of longevity. So being able to reconnect and make new friends is really important. We kind of talk about, ideally, you know, retirement should be like going back to high school or college and getting back into that free-flowing kind of communal group of easily making new friends and shifting over. If you can get back into that, into your high school mindset, you know, you're much better for that third age of retirement.
Well, absolutely. I think that one of the things that I've learned over the years, especially working with someone that maybe has recently lost a loved one, the spouse or a close friend, and the intimidation of maybe moving to a retirement community, and there's so many things that are going on couples wise, and they don't feel secure enough to step into a new environment and try to make friends. So it seems that it's easier that I'm just going to stay in my home because I don't have a husband, or I don't have a wife, or I don't fit in, which is really kind of a sad thing, because what we see is that once we're able to overcome that stigma, if you will, the joy that comes from learning about other people's lives and sharing memories that are very similar in that time actually help to increase the lifespan of that person, because they've become important or interesting to someone else, but they really have to step out to do that.
So this is one of those lessons that, you know, looking at the most successful people, if you go to people who have already made the move into senior housing, one thing we heard over and over again, and this is across a whole range of senior housing, from like mobile homes in Arizona to the villages in Florida to assisted living to continuing, you know, full service continuing care, retirement, or life plan communities. People said over and over again, I wish I had done it sooner.
Exactly.
And why wasn't the money, it was because of these social connections. So what you don't want to do is wait to do that move, that downsizing, until you don't have the energy to do it for yourself. When you're forced to do it, when it's an emergency, when it's a need, when people are doing it to you rather than you're doing it for yourself, it's a much less enjoyable experience. And if you can do it as a couple, so you make new social connections before you need to lean on them, you're so much better off in the long run by having done it before. So the average age for move-in for CCRCs, which is kind of the high-end full service end of senior living, is, you know, mid-80s, okay? Some of the newer developments, independent living, you might look in the mid-70s. One of our rules, we've already done one round of downsizing. We've moved from a, you know, kind of a big McMansion to a small lake cabin in North Iowa to be close to originally both my wife's folks, and we have a daughter in the Twin Cities. So we're kind of midpoint, easy to help both of them. But we plan to move again before 70, so that we reduce our cares and worries about maintenance, and so that we make sure that we've got those social connections. Bill mentioned the danger of isolation and the need for keeping connected with people.
Right. Well, we have one of our topics in our Spark Senior series is aging in the right place. And it's really all about that. For some people, aging in your home, which is what my mother wanted to do, I'm staying here, take me out in a box, kind of that comment, was not the best place because she was lonely and didn't live close to any of us. So aging in the right place has so many benefits. Just the lock and leave, as you said, lifestyle. I want my things to be there. I can still go. I can still do what I want to do. Those are things that people really do need to consider. So I want to ask you another question that you and I kind of shared together here. The question here is, the risk of loneliness highlights emotional health. Are there other things that matter, especially coming off of the year that we just did?
COVID just really shows the danger of isolation. Almost all of us have some example of a friend or a relative who was affected by COVID, not by it. And I have friends or connections that have both had the infection. I've had friends that have died from COVID. But I have an equal or larger number that were negatively affected in terms of the social isolation. If you have any memory impairment, isolation is only going to compound and speed up the decline. I had an aunt who passed away in Delaware, and my cousins say that she's a COVID victim, not because she got infected, but because living in assisted living in the lockdown, she gave up and passed away just kind of from essentially lack of purpose or lack of the willingness to go on, according to my cousins. And, we hear that all over. But both Bill and Betty had examples. I'm going to share a screen here just a second, if you don't mind. Everybody see this? Wellness dimensions?
Yes.
So the number and count varies occasionally, expert to expert, but there are several areas that we want to be focused on in terms of maintaining health as we age. And the social is a really important one. That's the avoiding the isolation. Aging in place sounds great because we don't have to go through the burden of having to move, right? But it works until it doesn't. A lot of us live in these Peter Pan homes with stairs, and we love the family memories and everything, but and my dad was in one of these, and if you've got to go upstairs to get to the bathroom and the shower, and suddenly have a health crisis, that Peter Pan home doesn't work anymore. It's the home that assumes that we never grow up, right? So social connections really important. And if I were looking for downsizing or a move, one of the first things I would ask is not how much does it cost, not what does it look like, or even what the food is, although that's a common topic. It's the community like? Is it open? Is it welcoming? Will I be included? Will I be invited in? Talk to other residents, not just staff, because that's a really critical test. Although another good test is longevity of staff. The longer staff stays, the happier staff is, the happier residents tend to be. That was an interesting discovery. We also want to maintain our physical health because flexibility, muscle mass, hand strength, all are pretty good determinants of how well we age. Intellectual, keeping learning new things is really important for brain neuroplasticity, or the ability to keep that mind agile and to avoid loss of mental performance or memory. So we really have to exercise our mind as well. Spiritual, Bill and Betty both brought this up, but there's a lot of evidence that some participation in a religious tradition is predictive of longevity and happiness. So both of those go with participating in a religious tradition. I grew up Methodist. I married a Catholic, real traditional farm Catholic family. So we're Catholic, but it's true of across a range of religious traditions. Vocational,
Right.
this is kind of what we do either for our income or for our talents. And sharing talents, even if it's volunteering or maybe especially volunteering as we get older and we want to leave some of our legacy of our wisdom and our experience, is really important to a lot of people's success and happiness. That's a lesson we see, is that legacy becomes more important. And even if we're giving it away, we're happy to do so because it gives us some joy in sharing that with other people. And the Betty's lessons of you're responsible for your own happiness, from her mom, that's one of the principles of emotional health is that self-awareness and acceptance of one's own feelings and being able to manage our own feelings. That's a really important part of happiness as well. And wisdom and maturity that comes with aging. This is where one of the strengths of those of us who are, who get to the gray hair stage is we're better at this than 20 and 30-year-olds. So let's enjoy that strength.
Right, absolutely. That's really good. Well, one of the things I want to share with our audience today is that Dan has been gracious enough to actually put together something for us that will be out on his website, and there'll be many links to the different topics that we're talking about today and that graphic as well. So you'll be able to access that once our recording is complete, and we'll talk about that today before we finish up. So Dan, one of the other questions that I have for you, we're talking about the different timelines for people, and I think that as people get older, and Bill actually mentioned that, one of the things that was disappointing to him is as he got older, the neuropathy for him was a problem. He loves to sing, and oh my goodness, you can't believe what a beautiful piano player he is. He serenades us every time we see him. But the loss of the being able to stand very long has really been something that's quite irritating for him. Do you have anything that you want to add to that as you're aging?
Yeah, this is one of the real challenges of aging, is it's so easy to focus on our losses, our loss of relationships. It's far more likely that Lori's going to have to deal without me than I'll have to deal without her, just given the probabilities. I'm already 2 years older and I'm male, so we take that into account in our planning. But we also kind of focus on our losses sometimes when it comes to our reaction to the world, rather than focusing on those things that we can still do. And, if we focus too much on the losses rather than falling back on the things that we can still do, that's almost a formula for being unhappy. So this is where that emotional maturity of being able to focus on those things that we can still do really is important. And you saw that in Bill. Is, do I regret having the neuropathy and not being able to walk as well? I'm not getting as much exercise. That's got some compounding effects. Yeah, but you could still hear the joy that he has in music. In several different places he said that the music just came out of it, right? So that being able to find the joy in the things you can do. For Bill, it was music. We have to find that in ourselves of what can we still do. And one of the reasons that I'm doing the website is I like to write and I like to public speaker. So those things give me an opportunity to share, and it's a legacy effort for myself. So I may not be able to run the 100 meters like I could. Actually, it was 100-yard back then, like I could when I was in high school. But dang, I can do a lot of things better than I could do in high school today.
Yeah,
So I'm going to do that.
Absolutely. Well, I have one more question for you today before we move on to Shaneka, and that question is a controversial thing that's going on right now. You know, some people say that they will, some people say they won't. The question to you is, what are you thinking? What's your thoughts about the vaccine?
We'll take it as soon as we possibly can. I'm kind of below the threshold of over age 65, so I'm farther down on the list. But in my career, I ran a venture capital fund. And one of the things that I invested in was a company that did rapid development vaccines using the new messenger RNA technology for animal health. And they were key in developing a vaccine for the swine flu, which was a serious threat in the farming community just a few years ago. You know, Iowa being what it is. So I know the technology, and it's much different than the Salk vaccine for polio technology of the 1950s. We're so lucky that we have this technology available. So instead of taking years to develop a vaccine, they've literally developed multiple vaccines in a matter of months. That's just remarkable. And I'm a lawyer by original training. And, you know, risk is relative. There's no such thing as zero risk. But what the vaccines allow is a dramatic reduction in risk. And what, you know, you may still be infected with COVID, but the chance of serious illness as a result of the COVID infection after any of the 3 authorized vaccines in the United States brings the risk down to just like the average risk that we have day to day. Is, you know, it's not safe walking out the door. Nothing is perfectly safe. So I'm more than ready to get back to travel. I really wanted, our plans last year were to go to South by Southwest in Texas, and we missed that. I've got relatives in Lockhart. You know, I think we were joking a little bit about Richardson up front, but you know, one of our plans is we want to do a little bit of snowbirding, and Texas is kind of our preferred destination. So we'd like to get back to be able to get down to Texas or do some traveling, you know, do some meetings, and living in person back to restaurants would be really nice for us. But yeah, we're ready day one. It's far safer than the threat of COVID itself, particularly for those of us, you know, of a certain age with gray hair. And you know, I would suggest to everybody else that there's no such thing as zero risk, but this takes us much more, and so that COVID just becomes one of those other risks of life.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much.
You're not required to agree with me, but that's our answer.
No.
That's from experience with these vaccines.
Right, and I will say that I must applaud the Watermark, because they were very proactive. They had all of their residents were vaccinated. They've all had both of their vaccinations there, and there are other retirement communities that are considering doing the same thing. But I felt that was really aggressive, and that was a great thing that Debbie's group at the Watermark did. So that I was proud to hear that. Dan, before we leave you, if you wouldn't mind just doing a screen capture for us real quick and show people where they'll be able to go after our seminar today to pick up some of the information that you so kindly put together for us.
So here's our website, agingwithfreedom.com. And right over here on the bottom left-hand side, we've created a special page that includes a download of some background information built around the questions that Ingrid had asked earlier. And it includes, you know, links to other resources, pieces on our website. You know, we'd ask that you sign up for our newsletter, but this is really our gift to you for attending today. So if you don't, you can still do the download. But the password to get in is Texas. So if you just enter Texas, so this is just for you guys, here you go.
That's perfect.
And you can download Be Smart About Living to 100. and you'll have it. And this is what that document looks like. When you do it, it has all sorts of resources, both on our website and other resources, including books and other things that you might be interested in. So do that and enjoy. It's been fun talking with you today, Ingrid. I'll hold on to listen to Shaneka and answer questions later.
Okay. That sounds great. And thank you so much for doing that. There's some great resources out there. We really appreciate that. And just keep in mind that that's going to be out there for maybe a week, something like that.
We'll leave it up for about a month. But
Okay,
so
for a month.
sometimes if you'll do it in the next 30 days, it'd be much appreciated.
Okay, well, we'll make sure and send that reminder out to everybody next week. So we're ready to move forward to our next guest. Debbie, did you have any questions that you wanted to ask of the audience prior to?
I don't think so.
Okay. All right, well, we are now going to be moving on to my next guest, which is actually sitting right here to my left, here in the studio with me today. And I'm wanting to thank Dr. Shaneka Baylor for coming and spending time with us today. And what I'd like for you to do is tell our audience a little bit about yourself.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dr. Shaneka Baylor. I am actually a board certified geriatric and ambulatory care pharmacist. I'm also a certified diabetes education specialist. I am also working on my master's in nutrition and wellness. I've been a busy woman.
Yeah.
I've been a pharmacist for 12 years. And as of 2019, I went into business for myself. I own a franchise that we will talk about later in the show. And then I also own my own health and wellness company where I like to help individuals of all ages, but especially seniors as well, working on medication management and then nutrition services.
That's great. Wow. You're a busy lady.
Yes, ma'am, I am.
Oh my goodness. Well, that's good though. It's good to be busy, right?
Yes,
and it's good to be busy doing the things that you like to do, right?
Absolutely.
That's great. That's
Absolutely.
me. That's me. So, you know, Dan just shared quite a bit of information with us about things that we should consider, especially making the rest of our lives the best of our lives.
Yes.
I love that phrase. I want to make the rest of my life the best of my life. And the reason that we invited you to come and talk with us today is for us to be able to do that successfully, we need to feel good.
Absolutely.
We need to follow health guidelines. And we need to pay attention to what our doctors say.
Yes.
Would you agree?
I would agree with all three of those.
Whether you like them or not.
Whether you like it or not.
That's exactly right. So, you know, one of the things that in the questions that you and I prepared together that comes up often is I like to take, for me personally, I take a lot of vitamins.
Okay.
I do. I love vitamins. I mean, I've been doing that since I was probably 13.
Okay.
So it's a regular thing for me. So when my doctor says, I want you to take these medications, oftentimes I think, well, I'll bet you a vitamin would be just as well. So is it all right for people to supplement or exchange vitamins for medication? Talk to us about that.
Okay, so the thing with medication, vitamins versus supplements and your prescribed medications are, one is going to be the testing of how we do things. So oftentimes we'll just take blood pressure because many of us as we age end up being on 1 or 2 blood pressure medications. So when we're talking about that, those medications specifically work on different things in our body to either open our blood-brains or narrow them, you know, things like that. Whereas with your vitamins and your supplements, well, that's a lot of minerals. So those really affect what we're eating. And we also can't regulate vitamins like that. So, you know, FDA regulates your medications. They tell you they've been through these clinical trials. They look at them, they test them on individual people, make sure they're safe. We don't necessarily do that with vitamins and supplements. And a lot of times, while we might get some effect from vitamins or supplements, it won't be the overall effect of what you need from the medication that the doctor prescribed for you.
And The medications are so expensive.
They can be.
Where the
Some of them-
vitamins are so much more reasonable.
Yeah, some of them, that is very true. And as we age, that can very much be a problem, because if you're on multiple medications, some might be what we call generics. So, you just get one pill, it'll cost you $5, but others are going to be brand name and they might cost you $100, $200. And then when you're talking about your Medicare and all of these different things, it gets to add up. So it becomes either easier to not take a medication at all or to try to do the supplement.
Right.
But when we were talking about living healthy earlier, if you don't necessarily take the medication and make lifestyle changes, it could very well shorten your lifespan. So it's a combination of all those things. But if your doctor is starting you on something, my advice is to always take it, and then to ask them to have you work with a nutritionist or some kind of specialist on the other end of that, so maybe we can limit how much of a prescription medication you need.
Okay. And I know that one of the things that I wanted to be super respectful and careful about today in our conversation is that having you here today as an expert is not necessarily having you here to tell somebody you don't need this and you should take that instead.
Exactly.
So we want to make sure and be cautious of that.
Absolutely.
So, here's something else, and Dan talked about one of the things for him that really stands out when it comes to aging that he found in his research was loneliness.
Yes.
And I would tell you that I have seen in several cases, both with my mother and my mother-in-law, that loss of appetite for them was a combination of things.
Yep.
I would say number one, lonely. It's no fun to cook for one.
Nope.
When you're 2 or 3 or 4, you can have fun in planning the menu. Or like my husband and I, maybe bicker back and forth about what we should have tonight or not.
Yes.
But when you're by yourself, that's really something that you yearn for.
Yeah.
And I would say, as far as living in a retirement community, that's one of the things that's nice, is that you don't have to worry so much about what am I going to make for myself. You have the opportunity to look at a menu and have those things, whether it be COVID time or not, you still have those opportunities. But what effect does medication have on appetite?
Oh, goodness. So medication has several different effects on appetite. Number one, it can decrease your appetite. So there are certain medications, whether it's for diabetes or for pain or, different things, it will make you less hungry.
Mm-hmm.
So that can contribute to having loss of appetite. Medication can also increase your appetite, and it can make you want things that are not good for you. So we have to be cognizant or aware of that also, that there are certain medications that you start craving sugary foods or simple carbohydrates, things like that. So it can do that. We have medications that make you sleepy. So then again, if you're asleep, you're not eating. So
Right.
that again can contribute to loss of appetite, because then you wake up and you're just like, oh, it's nighttime. I'll just snack real quick and go back to bed.
Right,
So
right.
those are all things that medications can do to affect our appetite.
So really the time of day is what really matters. And if your medication says this is something you should take in the morning or you should take in the evening, you really need to follow that, because it may have some of those side effects
Absolutely.
that you're talking about.
Absolutely.
The other thing that we've noticed, and I don't know, I think Dan maybe mentioned that, is that as we age, our taste buds change. Things aren't as rich in flavor as they used to be. For some people, that's when they're wanting more salt. But also, I think medication has impact there as well.
You
Would
are
agree?
absolutely correct. Yes, medication does. Again, medications can change the way foods taste. So I like to use antibiotics as an example. There are certain antibiotics that give you a metallic taste in your mouth. So then that, you don't want anything because it doesn't taste good. Again, taste buds do change. And most times with medications, it's that adverse taste, that different kind of taste, or your dry mouth all the time.
Right.
And so again, you don't really want anything because you feel like it's going to get stuck in your mouth. And so that's not a very good taste to have either.
So when you mentioned the metallic, I mean, is there anything that you could suggest that you might have along with that would minimize that taste?
Unfortunately, with that antibiotic, there's usually not a lot that will minimize it. Sometimes if you're able, I'll tell people try to suck on a peppermint, you know, or maybe a lemon drop, maybe a sugar-free one,
Yeah.
you know,
yeah.
depending on what your health
diet plan
conditions
is,
are.
yeah.
Yeah, your diet plans are. But something like that might help to take some of that taste away.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. I know that you mentioned earlier that paying attention to the time for the medication is important. I know that for myself, my regimen,
Mhm.
I have 2 prescriptions that I take in the morning, one
Okay.
for my thyroid and a water pill.
Okay.
First thing in the morning, I got to do that.
Okay.
Before I walk out the door, I've got my sack of vitamins that I need to take. And for me personally, if I don't take all of that at one time, forget about it. I'm not the kind of person that can say, okay, I got to take these 3 at noon, and then I have to take these 2 at night. I just throw them all down at one time and I'm on my way. Is there a problem doing that?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't want you to say that.
Okay. Unfortunately, yes, because with the different types of medications, they can either interact with each other. Some of them can interact with foods. So that's why, you know, when you see something on a prescription bottle, if they're telling you, you know, take this first thing in the morning, 30 minutes before you have anything else, is because anything else might interact with that medication. So then your body won't absorb it like it's supposed to. And then you're not getting all of the medication. So that means you might need an increase in the medication. They add another medication because it's not working well. So, you know, just throwing them all in at one time, I usually don't advise that for people. And then even if you're on multiple medications for the same thing, taking them all at the same time, we'll just use blood pressure again as an example. Taking them all together either might make your blood pressure drop too low early in the day, and then at night you're very high, or, you know, it's just not going to work at all because, again, they're all just thrown in there together. So certain medications do work better at night because while we're sleeping, that's when it's working on our body systems. So that's why I always say, no, you can't just throw them all in your mouth at one time and be done with it for the day.
Even though they're vitamins?
Even though they're vitamins,
Dang.
because even with vitamins, if you're talking about calcium or if you're taking an antacid, so something with magnesium, that magnesium can bind in your stomach and bind that calcium. So then you're not getting the calcium. And then we also have that there's only so much nutrient that your body can absorb at one time. So if you're taking a lot of calcium, you're not going to get it all. Usually it's recommended 500 milligrams, you know, twice a day if that's what you're going to do, not just take all your calcium at one time.
Oh, you just really messed me up here. I'm going to have a private session with you, I think.
Oh, goodness.
So, you know, when you were a pharmacist, did people ask you about a good way to keep track of their meds?
Yes, yes. So again, you know, we're talking about that one and done. So usually if you're on 1 or 2 medications, it's fairly easy to remember. And if you are having some trouble remembering, I'll tell people set an alarm, you know, either on your phone or your watch or something like that. So you have a daily reminder to take that. When you start talking about multiple medications or needing to take them several times a day, I always advocate for a pill box. And you can find several different kinds. You'll see the ones that are singular that just have Sunday through Saturday. And then they go up to having AM, PM. You know, now they even make them that they have AM, midday, you know, evening and bedtime. Mm-hmm. So you can find just about any kind of pill box that you need to keep track. And so I always recommend for that, and to keep a list of your medications and update that every time you go, you know, to the doctor as well.
Well, that's good. I know that with my mother-in-law, oftentimes my husband would go with her to the doctor, and we always had to make sure that we had the most updated list.
Yes.
Not counting on them while they're professionals, but not counting on them to see that their files have the updated list, especially if you're moving from one to another.
Exactly. And then if you don't have all of your physicians in the same group or in the same hospital, that's one thing. If you go to the hospital and then you come out, there's changes that are made. And so, you know, you need to have those lists so you can have ask questions and make sure you're not taking the same things or 2 medications in the same class and they're duplicating themselves.
Okay. Well, that makes sense. Debbie, did you have a little question for us, for our audience today?
I do. Let me launch
based on what we've learned today, how many medications do you take right now? Give us a quick answer. So we have 0 to 3, 3 to 6, or more than 6.
Looks like 0 to 3 is our.
0 to 3 seems to be our largest
that's not
number.
too bad.
That's not too
That's
bad.
not too bad.
That's
That's
really
when I was
great.
in practice, I had people that on average were taking about 5 or 6. So 0 to 3 is good.
Yes, it is.
Yeah,
It
that's
really
really good.
is. That's great. You know, let's talk about another thing when it comes to keeping the body well. Hydration.
Yes.
Hydration is probably what I've seen with my parents especially is one of the biggest problems. How many times have we said, drink more water, drink more water?
Yes.
I know that for my mother and my mother-in-law, for both of them, they drink a cup of coffee 10 times a day if they could.
Yes.
Coffee, whether it's hot or cold, love, love, love coffee or tea.
Yeah.
But that's not always the best thing because it acts as a diuretic.
That's right. It'll send you
But
to the
then
bathroom.
again, when you tell somebody, you know, just take a few sips of water, typically the comeback is, if I drink more water, it's going to make me have to go to the bathroom more. And I really don't want to do that, which is the reason why I don't drink the water.
Yeah.
So what can you say about that?
Oh goodness. So that is always a bit of a challenge because just, you know, as we were talking earlier about our taste perception changing and, you know, not being as hungry, that also happens with water. So we don't think we're as thirsty. And so we don't get enough water as we age. You know, I will recommend bottles just like this because it makes you feel like you've completed something. Whereas opposed to if you're, you know, drinking the 8, 12-ounce bottles, that just seems like a lot of water to be trying to have at one time. With my grandmother, you know, this is what we'll do. We'll give her like one of these little bottles. And, you know, when we have her with breakfast, lunch, and dinner, you know, we have to drink this. So we're at least getting these 3 in per day. You know, you can also talk to them if they can have fruit, maybe water-filled fruits and vegetables, also to kind of get some water from that.
Oh, okay.
You know, tea and coffee once a day, that's okay. We just don't want to do that all day.
Once a day? Oh boy, John, ooh, you're in trouble now.
Yes, or I have plenty of patients who used to be like, I'd have my Diet Coke. I'm like, oh no, we can't just have Diet Coke. That's not gonna help. Yeah,
So does medication cause any nutrient deficiencies in the body?
yes, it can. It can. So I like blood pressure because it's just an easy one. Most people, you know, recognize with it. So with that, we were just talking about, I have to go to the bathroom. You know, a lot of us are on fluid pills for our blood pressure. Those make you get rid of potassium when you're in that way. So that's an important nutrient. You know, we have other medications for depression sometimes, for diabetes. All of those can cause some micronutrients at times, especially if we're on those medications for long periods of time. And so a lot of times it's low, you know, it might be what we call low normal. So your doctor may or may not address it because it's not a major deficiency, but it could still be causing some nutrient problems. And on the other side of that, you're still not eating enough, so you get the two together.
Yes, right. And nutrients are so important. How about memory deficiencies? Do medications interfere with your memory?
There are some that can. Yes, there are. So a class of anxiety medications that help with anxiety that can affect your memory at times. Then we also have medications, what we would call for sleep, that the over-counter medications that you can take for sleep sometimes. All of those things, what they start to do is mess with our, what we call neurotransmitters in our brain. And so if they're not getting the chemical signals properly, that can affect our memory. So yeah, there are some medications that can affect our brain health, our and how we're getting the nutrients to our brain.
Well, speaking of brain health and having a healthy mind, talk to us more about your theory on that.
Okay. So I do very much think that what we eat does play a role in our brain health as we age. Over the last few years, there's been a lot more about the mind diet. And so what the mind diet is just a combination of the Mediterranean and the DASH diet. And, every year they do the top diets, and the worst diets. And so I think Mediterranean, who knows how long it's been #1 now, but what they've done is looked at all of the benefits of those 2 diets, overall health, and then with brain health. And they've combined that to advocate and tell people these are the kind of things that you should be doing to improve your brain health through what you're eating. So increasing the amount of dark leafy greens that we're having, making sure that we are eating berries.
Berries, all kinds of berries?
All kinds of berries, because berries, because of the different colors and they have a lot of micronutrients and things in there that can help with brain health. Doing nuts. And all kind of nuts. Again, we don't want to go overboard because too many nuts can cause weight gain, but you want to make sure you're getting nuts in every day because they have healthy fats, which are also good. And
I thought it'd be fiber.
Well, fiber is good for it, but
yeah.
no, but the healthy fats, because our brain does still need fat also. So we need that. So you have making sure that you are eating, hold on, there's like 10 things. So it's like
green vegetables,
yes, leafy greens, berries, nuts, fatty fish.
Fatty fish, love
so
fatty
yeah,
fish.
So making sure salmon, tuna, mackerel, sardines. My grandmother growing up, she's pop a can of sardines.
I love sardines myself.
All the time. So yeah, so those are good for you. Olive oil.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to make sure that you're using the olive oil, and then making sure that not only leafy greens, but that you're adding other bright colored vegetables into your diet as well. So those peppers and onions, because again, all of those colors have phytonutrients that are good for us and that help with our brain health.
What's a phytonutrient?
So it's basically the colorful thing, it's what causes the color in the vegetables. And then that color, they break down into our system and help to have the A, when you start saying A to zinc, they have all of those different nutrients in there and that they work together. So again, taking vitamins like we talked about earlier is good, but you also want to mix your vegetables because that's how they work best in concert with each other.
Oh, okay. Okay. That sounds great.
Yes. And so then we're making sure, also doing like chicken breast and things like that. And then beans and legumes.
Oh, okay.
So you want to add that into your diet as well.
When you say the Mediterranean, I've heard a lot about that, but what is the DASH?
So the DASH is the dietary approach to stopping hypertension diet or DASH diet. So in health circles, if somebody has high blood pressure, that is usually the first diet that we'll recommend before we do medication, or if we do medication and lifestyle changes, we recommend the DASH diet. So it decreases the amount of sodium that you're taking in on a daily basis, but it also will let you have, low amounts of chicken, making sure you're increasing your vegetables, small amounts of red meat a couple of times a week, things like that.
Oh, okay. Okay. That's great. That's great. So, I have a couple of more questions for you before we end our time together. One of the things that you had noted, in many ways, doctors and adult children gauge their parents' ability to live by themselves by their ability to cook for themselves. Now, we talked about earlier, living in a retirement community, that in some cases, that's one of the reasons that you would go to independent living,
Right.
because you still can cook if you want, even though you have the restaurant facet of it. But tell us a little bit about that and why that's so important.
So again, because, when we're talking about ability to live alone, cooking, what we put in our bodies, being able to eat and eat the right types of foods helps us to physically, we talked about those different parts of wellness earlier,
Right.
to physically take care of ourselves. So if we're not eating proper foods, if we're not getting those nutrients, then we increase our risk of falling, which becomes, another reason that you can no longer, stay, whether it's an independent or at your home.
Exactly.
And things like that. So, and then your physicians, when you're taking your parents to the doctor or you're going to the doctor with them and they're wanting them to, eat better, well, the doctors are concerned about how brain health, are you going to remember that you need to eat? Are you going to, is it safe for you to, continue to engage in these ways? So food becomes the thing, because we know that if you're not eating, the rest of those things start to go down,
Okay, of
so
course.
the rest of
That
your
makes
health
sense.
starts to go down. And we'll talk about loneliness, like we said earlier, depression. I don't want to eat. I don't want to bathe. I don't, like you start with
Exactly.
all the I don't wannas.
Exactly.
And then, you get to a point where now it's too late. So that is one of the reasons that what you're eating, how often you're eating, is why they gauge, is a way to gauge, is it safe for you to still be at home? Or even if you're in the independent living, because some of these independent livings don't necessarily have a restaurant,
Right.
or a meal plan, is it still safe for you to be there? Because nobody's checking on you.
Right.
And we don't just want you ordering McDonald's or
Well,
something else all day, or just making a peanut butter sandwich that has no nutrients for you.
My mother-in-law was famous for living on weenies and Oreos. And her Jack Russell Terrier was the one that got the benefit of the weenies.
Okay.
And she had a sweet tooth and she loved those cookies. But, after a while that had to change, because that was really not a good thing for her.
No, not at all. And we tend to forget that if we're not eating how we're supposed to, then I'm trying to, what is the best way for me to say this? Just thinking about that overall health and how, well, what happened? Like you said, your mom, did she have to make a choice? Did the doctor basically say it's either here?
The doctor said, I cannot be your doctor any longer if you continue to live by yourself, because I worry that that's not safe for you.
Yeah.
And so then it became not her choice anymore. It became, we need to find a place for her to live.
Yeah. And I think that becomes the ultimate, is that you take the decision out of your parents' hands, and then that can lead to a whole other road, of going downhill.
Right.
Because you want it to be their choice.
Right. Well, one of the things that I want to make sure that we talk about today, which is actually how you and I met.
Yes.
And I thought it was just a wonderful thing, is you have one of your other businesses in your busy day.
Yes.
Now that we've talked about all the foods and how important nutrients are, your business is one that really creates a social connection.
Absolutely.
Which is what we all are starving for with your clients. Tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, so Chefs for Seniors is actually an in-home meal preparation service.
Chefs for Seniors.
Chefs for Seniors, yes. And so they are a national franchise, but we come into the home and we prepare a week's worth of meals. But it's not just about the meals, it's about the companionship. So whether you are living at your home, whether you are at an independent living facility, we are there to make sure you're getting the proper nutrition that you need, that your doctor is wanting you to have, and also making sure that you're getting that engagement. I have found that clients, they look forward to that once a week, or every other week companionship. Maybe their children live in another state or another city, so they can't get there as often as they would like. Even in the midst of the pandemic, we have clients that are in like a 55+ community. They were still excited because we could come, and cook for them. Even when they couldn't interact with everybody else in their facility, they knew we were coming, once a week, again, to provide that companionship, along with making sure that they had the food that they needed.
Well, and in some cases, really, it's kind of a wellness check that you're doing as well.
Absolutely.
Because especially if the children are not living close by, or maybe they are, but they cannot make that happen. Having you there visiting with that client, with their parent, you can kind of see the changes that are going on and maybe help them understand what's happening at home as well, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Most times, especially if a child is the one who called for us to come and start doing the service, they're the emergency contact.
Mm-hmm.
So, if I noticed that Miss Smith was being really, really talkative, and then all of a sudden something is going on, I might text her daughter and say, hey, I noticed that Miss Smith was, a little off today. Has anything changed? Just so we're aware also. And then, also learning our client, they know that whatever they're telling us, we can cross that over, let them know, let whoever we need to know also.
Right. Well, and you also have an opportunity because you're preparing the meals for them.
Yes.
So they're not meals that they're going to eat all at one time,
No.
that when you come back, you should expect all those meals to be gone.
Or just about,
Or just about,
yeah.
right.
And
right.
if they're not, then we're having the conversation with them. Was the portion too big? Was it not enough? Did you not like what it tasted like? If
Right.
you didn't like how it tastes, tell me a little bit more. I have a client right now who recently recovered from stroke. So she's on a heart healthy diet. And we've been her taste buds are different now too. So we've been building and learning, the chef is learning her and getting to figure out what her new likes and dislikes are, because even she has to figure that out, because now we can't do salt. So we have to change, and that can change again, like we talked about earlier. Oh, I don't like this anymore because now it doesn't taste good.
Right. So as we wrap up for today, what kind of advice would you share with our audience about nutrition, medication, and nutrition and healthy eating? What can you tell us to take away?
Well, when I talk about nutrition and healthy eating, what I'm going to say, find the things that you like, but eat them in moderation. And then be willing to just still, even in our older age, try new things, because you might find that something you liked when you were younger, you don't like now, and vice versa. So play around with foods. If you need somebody to come and, cook for you, or try the meal plans at your facility, and just try the different things. And even if it's just a little bit, because people also ask me about like a boost or an Ensure supplement, those don't replace what we eat. So we need to make sure that we're at least trying to get 50% of what we eat, and then you can supplement with that.
Oh, that's good. That's very good. Is it important for you to log or catalog the food that you're eating while you're trying to figure out what you like and don't like?
I think so, because then that way, if you try something on Monday and you don't try it again for 2 weeks, you may not think that you like it anymore.
Right,
and you're, you'll forget. I forget, you know. So I think it's important. And then that way you can eat your favorite things over and over again.
That's great. Well, I know at most of the retirement communities that we have relationships with, they can't be real specific to what your meal plan is. But if they know that you require a certain type of meal, especially diabetic, for example, they can actually serve that up for you, but they have to know that to be able to do that. So you need to be open to sharing that.
Exactly. Don't be afraid to say, I need a diabetic meal plan, or I need a low sugar or a low salt. And, and then they can play around with that, and find other herbs and things. If you are cooking for yourself that you enjoy, and try different spices, not spicy, but different spices, to make things taste better.
Well, and for my mother-in-law, what they did for her was they took the weekly menu and they would actually circle things on that menu, so she would know these are the things that you can order off the menu. These are the things you should stay away from. And that was a real good guide for her. So she didn't have to try to decipher it every time.
Absolutely. And we do the same thing. We have, we can break it down for them. So
that's good. That's good. Well, great. Well, thank you so much for sharing that with us today. As we're coming to a close of our program, and we're going to, of course, do our drawing, I want to ask you all a question. How will you choose to experience a long life? What habits, after what you learned today, what habits will you adjust to make your lives better? Give us a little answer here and let us know. Is this a multiple choice, Debbie?
Yeah.
Okay, it's a multiple choice question. Okay, let's wrap it up.
Eat healthier.
Eat healthier. Okay, now remember, this was a anonymous poll, so we can't write your names down. Eat healthier, because that would have been one of my choices. So that's going to be your mantra every day. I'm going to eat healthier. And second choice came in, exercise more. I love that. We're getting ready to come into spring now. How great is that? The weather's getting nice. We can go outside and walk, and I think we can safely walk without our mask on if we're in a place where we're not around a lot of people. And then the other is make changes for brain health. So keep those things in mind that Shaneka mentioned to us about the right things to eat for your brain health. I think that's really important, and I want to definitely take that down. And I know that you'll provide us with information on that.
I have a graphic that I'll send
Perfect.
that you guys can send
That's
out for the
perfect.
Mind Diet.
Okay,
Absolutely.
that's great. So we'll be able to look for that as well. In closing, just briefly, we had another person that was going to be with us that couldn't on exercise. Just 4 things to keep in mind today. Keep moving, do something, walk, swim, play bocce ball, whatever you can. Get into an exercise class if you have access to that. Silver sneakers. That's a great way to do that. You can do a lot of things online right now, which are easy to do. Plan to spend 30 minutes several times a week to do that. Keeping in mind, it's going to make your body feel good, and it's going to make your brain feel good too. It's going to keep you feeling like you're engaged. Find somebody to do it with. It's more fun when you have someone to do it with. And the other part of that is it keeps you accountable. You don't want to let that friend down that's doing that exercise with you. So do that with them and make yourself feel better. And last but not least, do what makes you feel good. What makes you feel good. And you're going to sleep better and you're going to feel better. Thank you for attending our seminar today. We've got some questions we're going to answer as we prepare for our drawing.
I have one question in chat. Sharon wanted to know what Shaneka thinks about the memory supplement Prevagen.
Oh, good. I want to know that too. So the question is, what does Shaneka think about the memory supplement Prevagen?
So I actually have not done a lot of research. I've heard a lot of commercials on Prevagen. Again, I think it's because we do a lot of vitamins and minerals. So you just want to make sure that supplements don't interact with anything else you're already on. That's why my advocate will always be food first, because most times foods won't interact with medications, and it's the most natural way and inexpensive way, generally speaking, to increase your brain health.
Okay.
So.
Okay. All right. And I don't know if that's FDA approved now or not.
No.
So does that matter?
So yes and no, because FDA does not regulate supplements like they regulate medications. So some supplements will do a third-party certifier to show that there's no impurities or anything in their supplements. But again, you can't verify for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. What else, Deb?
I think that's the only one I had in the chat. I'm getting a lot of great feedback from people, though. They really enjoyed the seminar today.
That's great. Did we want to take a quick minute while you're getting ready for the drawing and open up the mic for anybody that might want to ask a question?
From Daniel Winegarden, it says, can you talk a bit more about diabetes contributions to brain health risk, sugar's contribution to diabetes?
So yes, so with diabetes definitely can affect your brain health. Because of sugar overload and the brainstem, you start putting more of the sugar, the brain fog that they talk about, into your everyday mental health. So that's why when we're talking about diabetes, the first thing I try to pull people away from is carbohydrates or the high simple sugars, because those things cause your blood sugars to go up and down, which can lead to effect of your mental health.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we always start with that. So people will say when they've had diabetes for a long time that it can affect their mental health. I will also say when we talked about, I forgot the gentleman's name who was on the video.
Bill.
Yes, so Bill talked about his neuropathy. And I will say that actually B12, which is one of our nutrients, that can, when you're deficient in that can lead to neuropathy.
Oh, wow.
And people
okay.
who have diabetes and have been on metformin for a very long time, sometimes that can also affect their neuropathy. So those are things that we have to start looking at too, when we start talking about those micronutrients and when you might need to supplement.
I have a question for you that just came up there. So if somebody wants to have, just like a breakdown of these are my symptoms. Mm-hmm. These are the things that I'm eating. This is what I'm taking. Can you tell me if I'm doing it the right way? Is that when you do a consultation with someone like yourself that could kind of put things together for you?
Yes, absolutely. One of the specialties that I'm going into is more of integrative and functional nutrition. So we look at those labs that specify your different micronutrients, and are you deficient, and are the medications you're taking, could they be contributing to the deficiencies? And then I can, work with your physician, make recommendations for you to take back about, okay, this is what we need to start doing. These are the foods I should be eating to try to help reverse some of those things, as opposed to adding more medication.
That's great. That's great. Anybody else from our audience?
We've got a couple
Lean
more.
Got a couple in the chat here.
Okay.
How do you feel about stevia?
Stevia.
So they haven't done any long-term. I recommend stevia for for most of my clients, especially those that are diabetic, as opposed to the other sugar substitutes, because those are more chemicals.
What about monk fruit?
I use monk fruit. I actually use monk fruit.
We do too.
Yes, that is my sweetener of choice.
Yeah.
And you just have to be careful with some of the stevias. They do add dextrose at times. So if you see dextrose, that's just another form of sugar. Some people don't like stevia because it's very bitter, but I will say I have seen stevia affect some people's blood sugars. So everybody is different. There is no one size fits all way to health.
Okay.
So
I see one here from Sue Boyd. What about lean cuisine meals?
a lot of those packaged meals have a lot of salt. So if you need to be avoiding salt, I do not recommend frozen dinners.
Oh. Oh, well, but for some people that are on the go,
I know it's complicated, but yeah, when you start talking about prepackaged foods, the way they last so long is because the amount of salt that they put in them.
Okay. In April, on April 8th, our next seminar is going to be called Be Smart About Going from We to Me. And I think we shared many times that we are really looking forward to an opportunity to get back together in an environment where we can all be together, but a safe environment for us all to be together. So be sure to check with us, because next month, this is going to be a wonderful seminar. It's a new one for us, like this was, but we are hoping to go back to the Viridian in their beautiful event center that they are setting up for us. And it will be socially distanced, but we'll be able to kind of be there with each other again if time permits. If not, we'll be back here with our guest speakers for next month. So thank you so much for coming today. We really enjoyed having you. Dan, thank you so much for the time that you spent with us today, all the great information that you gave to us. Thank you, Shaneka. It was just wonderful to have you here and share this.
Thank you.
And we look forward to seeing everybody back again. I'm Ingrid Sullivan with the Sullivan team and senior downsizing experts, sharing the Smart Senior series with you. See you next time.